All right. That is my signal. Welcome, everybody. Glad the topic got you interested and curious. And maybe just as a little warning, uh, tonight is really an open exploration. It's less about, talking about AI or prompting, or it's hopefully we're getting into an experience. And I have some specialized bots that behave a little differently than the incessant output machine that it comes straight out of the box as. And we'll get into conversational practice. It's really dialogue for learning, and that's it's really a conversational practice, not a technique. So so maybe just like what's the job that wants to be done here? I mean, and I've stumbled into this. This is I fell into a hole and then I realized, this is useful. Um, so so much about what we're learning about, prompting or prompt engineering or context engineering for AI is about how do we explain or delegate a task in a meaningful way that you get something less than generic back and or more than generic. And it makes a big assumption that I know and can describe what I want. And I don't know how many people here have delegated, been team leaders. I mean, the hardest part about delegation is actually articulating what you're expecting and then not to be surprised when the other person comes back with something completely different. Um, and so, I mean, vague prompts get generic results because AI is going to fill in all the vacuum. And if you don't specifically ask it to clarify or do follow-up questions, it'll just make shit up and then fill in the blank. And then what you look at is usually very disappointing. Um, I mean, the last time I wrote an article, yeah, you start with an idea and then you get into the writing part and then you realize I got to do more research here and this argument is holding together and there was a blind spot and then you have to rewrite the beginning because it no longer makes sense and you're sort of chasing your tail a little bit. There's information and new understanding arising that happens while I'm writing. And with AI, that all disappears because AI just spits it out. So my idea was, or kind of what I stumbled into was having extensive dialogic, like having an open mind, suspending judgment for longer than we're used to, being selective about where to choose, where to correct, how to nudge and shape the conversation, and still be in an exchange. It's not me telling the AI what to do. We are thinking together. And when you do that for a little while, you get a lot clearer about what you're actually wanting. And B, AI knows exactly what you want and gives it to you. I mean, in the end, the prompt becomes write the article. And then it just spells it out because you've already had an hour-long conversation about it and it knows exactly what you want. And suddenly the quality and the precision of your delegation is through the roof. So here we're kind of front loading what happens or what in the past happened while we were writing it or while we were putting the PowerPoint presentation together and shifting slides around and moving, this from there. I mean, all that kind of shaping that we're usually doing while we are creating the artifact, we tend to we tend to kind of delete in our memory, and then we just think, oh, I just spent 2 days writing an article. No, I was doing a lot of learning, I was doing research, I was doing all this other stuff. But what sticks is, oh, I wrote an article. So I'm not sharing. Nothing to see yet. I have a few diagrams. Um, so yeah, here you go. First diagram. Um, so I was starting to think about like what am I actually doing in these conversations when I'm exploring a topic that, I mean, so far I've only done, if you want to be in a conversation, you need to know what you're talking about. So it is useful to pick something out of a subject matter area where you have opinions, you have perspectives, and you want to be in a conversation with. And then you can explore the outer edges where you're not yet having clear language or where there's a curiosity but you don't know the answer yet, and then that becomes the center of the exploration. And these conversations, for me at least so far, have gone sort of in a rough sequence of creating context, tensions, patterns, example stories, models, people's ideas, and it's sort of like you just stuff them into the pot, and it creates a stew. And they don't all have to relate, they don't have to cohere, they're just part of the world, yeah, the part of the world that you're trying to explore and that you want AI to pay attention to. And then every so often, you do a little experiment like, okay, if we were to structure a PowerPoint deck right now, what would the structure, the outline look like? And then by the quality of the outline, you already have a pretty good idea whether you need to create more context or whether you're getting somewhere useful. Um, and similarly, by the time you have, looked at your artifact and with sort of two or three different outlines that prioritize or shift emphasis, and you sort of figured out like, oh yeah, no, this is getting close to what I want. Then you test, yeah, can you already create a draft from that structure, or do I need to fill? So there are these tests, and you don't end up with a very linear conversation. It goes back and forth, and you get lost in the weeds for a while, and then bring yourself back, and then you have to step back and take the bigger picture and just orient yourself. What are we still talking about, and where am I now? And then you go back into the details and bring some examples with it. So it's a very free-flowing kind of affair, like yeah, talking to a good friend who's then helping you reflect back. This is what I hear. Am I understanding this right? And you sort of shape the conversation as you go. Um, One of the things, I mean, certainly, yeah, in conversation, there is no pressure to perform. You let yourself be guided by your curiosity, and you're not yet outcome focused. It's an exploration. You're mapping the territory. And I mean, one of the things that is happening is that we're externalizing cognition the same way we would when we're journaling or we stand in front of a whiteboard with a colleague and we're drawing diagrams, and then suddenly we realize, yeah, that doesn't quite add up. How do we need to? Yeah, we are externalizing cognition so that our ideas and assumptions become examinable. And now we're having this weird talking machine, and it does this quite delightfully well. Now, the one thing that it also does is it amplifies everything that you put in. And, what was a two or three line comment becomes a three-page reflection back. I mean, the amount of information, it's like drinking from a fire hose. And we kind of have to manage ourselves in the conversation when there's so much stuff coming at us. One of the things to watch for is that in the responses, there are lots of open loops. Anybody not familiar with the idea of an open loop? Okay, so this afternoon I went to the backyard and I dug a hole. But before I go there, I won't tell you about what happened to me at the grocery store. Because at the grocery store, and it goes on. Now, I'm telling you a bunch about the grocery store, and part of your brain is still tracking. Why the hell was he digging a hole in the backyard? That makes no sense at all. And that is an open loop that we are compelled to wait for the answer for, like in comedy or storytelling. This is a very common way of creating suspense and keeping people engaged. And in the responses from AI, there are lots of open loops. A little suggestion here, maybe a follow-up question, a musing and a wondering and a curiosity, and it just is littered with open loops. And initially, my impulse was to want to close all those loops and respond to them. And if you ask me a question, I will be kind and give you an answer. And it quickly felt like I was doing homework. It became a chore. And then I realized AI does not care whether I actually respond to the open loops or the questions or not. And then me choosing which of the open loops are actually resonating with me or catch my curiosity or catch my attention for any reason at all. That's my way of shaping the conversation and giving the conversation direction. And unlike with people, AI never pushes back and does not insist that you have to respond to its question. So you just let most of it go and just follow the part that's interesting. And then sometimes, certainly in the beginning, yeah, you might pick up two or three strains of thoughts just because it enriches the conversation and does a little less back and forth. But as soon as the conversation is flowing, that becomes really sort of your steering wheel. One of the things to watch for in that sort of onslaught is how much cognitive strain it creates. Most people who've done a little bit of work with AI, yeah, get really good at reading diagonally and just checking, yeah, where in all that stuff that is coming at me, where's the interesting part? And I've slowed myself down for this way of being in conversation, and do more diligent reading. And sometimes it obviously is off in some corner that doesn't interest me, and I'll skip to the next section. But mostly it's sort of like uh, a quality of listening. Yeah, when we're in conversation, we do recognize when the other person is actually listening to us. And so here I've made good ex like had good experience from being relatively careful about checking what's coming back and then choosing, yeah, which direction I want to take it. Like in any good conversation, yes, think of a programmer and a user interface designer. They're not the same. And what they can do together is way better than either one of them could do on their own. That's the point. And the same is happening here. When I'm in conversation with AI does all the content production, endless words. It does pattern recognitions. It reflects back to me what it is hearing, how it's interpreting it, what assumption it is making. That's part of my instruction set for the bot. They're being more transparent about, yeah, how they get to these ideas. And I'm in charge of, is this still meaningful? Does it relate to reality or are we off in la la land? At what level of abstraction do I want to have this conversation? Is it very high level and conceptual, or do I want to get into the details and the examples? Um, and that becomes my role. I'm I'm shaping and steering the conversation. And AI produces patterns and language and reflections um, until the cows come home. So we are complementing each other, but my felt sense, this feels right, or this sounds right, we're going in the right direction, or we're a little off here, you get off the rails, it's too much. That's my part of like my signaling that shapes the conversation. And there are really three aspects here to highlight as part of our role. We have to honor our own speed. Yeah, when it's getting too fast and overwhelming, our judgment goes down and our way of keeping track what the conversation is about goes down. And that like breaks are part of the job. I walk around the block, I do my dishes, I need breaks. My brain cannot absorb all that is coming at me. So giving yourself time to actually digest, yeah, what's relevant and important to you and what isn't, is an important part of the job. The other part is like in any conversation that is going well, we want to send clear signals for how it's going. I'm starting to be overwhelmed, I get tired, or this is making me frustrated, or yeah, that those are signals, conversational signals that help the machine to be in a conversation that we want to be into. And and that requires feedback because we're expecting that machine to do way too much mind reading. And for all its cleverness, that it doesn't do yet. And then we have sort of two basic moves. One is, yeah, brainstorming and ideating, creating more ideas, widening the field. And then there's splashing around in the messy middle, trying to make sense, how to prioritize, what the tensions are, what matters. And then we're just closing loops and we're making decisions and choices, yeah, that then leads to an email or an article or whatever you need to do. And the other one is watching at what level of abstraction the conversation goes. We all sort of have our favorite cruising altitude, and new discoveries happen outside of our cruising altitude. And that's individually different. Some people are very abstract thinkers and they love being having their head in the cloud. And think of your average accountant. They look at the details, they cross every T, they dot every I, and they cannot help themselves. So, um, some attention on which level of abstractions are you actually moving in. And that's very individual. That's why this is more of an exploration and practice than a technique, because we will all do this very differently. Any questions? So my invitation is, um, to think about a topic, I will share a link to a GPT and a gem for Gemini that is sort of a modified version of the bot that's more conversational. And then I want to say, like, we take 15 minutes and everybody sort of take 3 to 5 turns with the bot on the topic of your choosing. You don't need to share any of the content. We're really after later to like share with each other what is it like to be in conversation with a bot that doesn't just jump to conclusions and serves up finished product on the first turn, and sort of find out a little bit, yeah, like how this shapes our learning and our way of exploring ideas. Yes, Elena.
Um, my brain is a bit fried, so can you like bullet point it for me, like the structure? Can you bullet point it for me, the idea, or not? Because I'm listening to everything, but I'm not clear on what I'm gonna do with the bot right now, besides having the topic. And like, what would I do differently from what I usually do with it?
You just react to the difference that shows up. So if you make a statement of, I'm curious how in group dynamics leadership shifts dynamically in self-organizing teams, or whatever your topic is. Yeah, somewhere where you have some expertise, but there's a curiosity that you cannot yet articulate, but you know that even in self-organizing teams, there is leadership.
Right.
But how the hell is that organized, or how do we know how to do this? And that might be sort of a topic of exploration. And then you just put in that curiosity and respond to what comes in a conversational way that prioritizes, noticing your implicit knowledge. I mean, sometimes we recognize something is true, but we could have never explained it that way. But once it's on the page, it's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Thank you very much. Um, and so recognizing when something is working and steering a conversation, however you do that. And there is no bullet point list because you do it differently than I do. I've been in this argument with AI now for 3 weeks, and it keeps refusing to give me bullet lists because
Cool.
it's the practice and not a technique or a recipe. And it's very annoying. And I've tried to trick it every way I know, and it keeps refusing me. So I'm going with it because I don't know anything better.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So Frank, would you mind like sharing your screen and going through the exercise once so that we
Ah,
can see what you're talking about?
yeah, I
Thank
can
you.
do that. Let me see. How would I do that? Where is my
Share. There's
Zoom
a big
window?
green button, share.
Where is my Zoom window? Boom, here it is. And I'm going to chat. And here is my crazy dialogic explorer. We pursue early ideas, curiosities, and challenges to gain more clarity in a reflexive dialogue. So, what are the dynamics in, or the leadership dynamics in self-organizing teams? Or maybe more like, I'm wondering how I could talk about, so make it a little vaguer that it doesn't think it needs to come up with a definitive answer. Talk about the leadership dynamics in self-organizing teams. It obviously changes or moves between people dynamically, and how that happens is a mystery to me. That seems like a good topic that is sort of an open-ended exploration, and I'm not yet talking about, yeah, that I want to make it a workshop or write an article about it or something. I'm starting with a curiosity.
And you're putting it in this dialogue explorer
So
sub.
once I send you a link, you'll double click on it and it'll install this chatbot in your instance of ChatGPT, or if you would prefer Gemini, there's a link to a gem, and that will bring it to your Gemini, and then you can have this kind of exploration, and it comes back with something. And then you respond to what comes back. And we'll do that for 15 minutes. And I would imagine that gives everybody a chance to do like between 3 and 5 turns and see, get an initial feeling for how this machine moves when you get it out of its compulsive answering mode. Does that explain it? Help? Does this help clarify what we're up to? I'll
So if
assume.
I can just repeat back, so
Yes.
you've put together a GPT or a gem, and it's going to act differently to the standard Chat GPT or Gemini, whereas Gemini and Chat GPT constantly try and keep you engaged in conversation, so the open loop that you were describing. The GPT or gem that you've created will try and close those loops and get you to the end of the task
Nope.
quicker.
Nope. Nope. My ChatGPT will drag you for the weeds forever without
Oh,
producing any outcome if you don't explicitly ask for it.
okay. So it's
But
just experiencing the
but if
difference.
you let yourself be dragged through the weeds for an hour and then you ask it, turn this into a PowerPoint deck that takes up 50 minutes, then that's the entirety of your prompt needed, and it will produce an astonishingly good workshop. But you've been in the weeds for 50 minutes trying to figure out what the workshop should be about.
And
Does
are
that
you
make
going to
sense?
share with yeah, that does. Are you going to share with us how you created these GPTs or
No,
this gem? No.
no. But it's about dialoguing, learning, reflecting back, um, but not the exact language. All right. So let me put those thoughts in the chat. First comes the GPT, and then comes the gem. So for those two, I've got it working. Claude doesn't have a clear equivalent, and I don't know about the others. So, oh yeah, so if you click it, it'll open up in the browser, and even if it's just saying hello, then we'll catapult a chat on the left-hand side and give you, and the GPT will stay in the list of your GPTs, and it will stay there. Unless I recall it. But I will change. It's still evolving. As it annoys me, I'll keep changing it. But it's pretty like the kind of things I've worked out for myself are quite satisfying. And at the end, I'll also share what I call a field guide, which is a way of trying to articulate what I've started with here in the beginning, but in a slightly different way. Any questions before we get started? Anybody have problems with getting that Dialogic Explorer showing up in their AI tool?
Volker, I have a question. So obviously this Explorer as a GPT partner has to be trained before. So I don't expect you to uncover your personal secrets, but just an idea on what did you train it on?
About 10 weeks of trying to articulate what I do as a coach, what I offer my clients, and how I pay attention in coaching conversations. And then suddenly it started to generate all sorts of prompts for me, like how I write, my cognitive strategy, how I think, my way of collaborating. And it defined essentially in a level of detail that blew my mind how to work with me effectively. And I don't have to spend hours getting it out of its compulsive answering mode before we are starting to do good work. I can just upload 3 or 4 files, and suddenly I'm right in the middle of where I left yesterday in a fresh chat on a fresh topic, and it was so much fun. And then I spent a couple of weeks stripping out everything that is uniquely me that would drive other people crazy, so that the bot isn't so fixated on how I think and how I collaborate, but a little bit more adaptive to different styles and different people. So I stripped it down drastically, until I ended up with just enough instructions that disabuses it of its craziness and is willing to have a conversation.
Thank you.
All right. Is everybody up and running? All right. So let's just take 15 minutes, silent work, and have an experience. I'll give us a timer. All right, one more minute. All right. I hate to tell you, but time to bring your attention back into the room. And you're certainly free to continue this afterwards. I had to restrain myself from going down the rabbit hole around self-organizing teams. The response was already really captivating, and I wanted to kind of jump right in. All right. Um, let's collect some experiences. What was it like to be interacting with a bot that has slightly different bedside manners?
It's very fast. Uh,
It does not change that. That's right.
I normally use the thinking model with my ChatGPT and it answers for a few minutes. So I just type something and go away from the keyboard. But now it was so fast. And the volume of the uh, answer is huge. So I spent only 10 minutes just digesting what it wrote to me.
Yep, real thinking happening.
It was very prolific for sure.
That's a
One
good
of the
word. I'll remember that word.
Yeah, one of the things that troubled me about it and I had a hard time with was it asked me multiple questions, um, and wanted me to answer them so that it could go the next step, and I couldn't find a way to answer them all, you know, in one back and forth, right? So it felt like it for me, it went down a path that I did not want to go down at all. It's like,
Okay.
why are you going this way, right? But
Yeah.
yeah,
And then that is the perfect response.
and I course corrected it, and it was happy. You know, it said, yeah, that's perfectly acceptable. I went the wrong way. Let's try again. But the thing that bothered me about it was that it asked me like 3 or 4 questions all in one prompt, and I think I try to be thorough, try to answer them all, try to close. What did you say? Close the boxes or fill the holes or God, your example.
Yeah, no, the invitation actually is to only answer the question that is actually interesting to you.
But there were
Because,
multiple.
oh yeah, then just ignore like the our the way we have learned to be in conversations with humans is a lot more complicated than with the machine. The machine doesn't take it personally. If you ignore questions, it'll get over it. Or maybe it'll come back later, but 3 prompts later, it'll suddenly make sense why it asked that in the first place, and then it's easy to answer. So because it is so prolific, being pretty radical about which train of thoughts you pick up or which questions you answer, and be very generous about ignoring everything else. I mean, that makes it your conversation. And otherwise, yeah, you're riding a wild bronco that is hard to control, and it'll drag you anywhere and everywhere.
I felt like I was playing a game of questions with it.
Oh,
So it's the more questions I asked, the more questions it responded to me with, and we just kept going down. Yeah, a lot of the AIs that I'm used to are more task oriented. And where I'll be asking it to, okay, tell me what the status of this section of the fabric is, and you know highlight anything that is of concern. But this was very much was much more conversational, and I started feeling like times when I would be with my friends and we would start the game of questions.
ah, yeah. I mean, the value of a good question.
What would you
It
say
seems
that
to have
is?
Say again. Yeah, Karsten.
I I said, what would you say that is the value of a good question?
It is remarkable how clear we need to be with ourselves and our thoughts in order to arrive at a good question.
Yes.
Yeah. So a good question presupposes a solid foundation of clarity already. Sorry, somebody else tried to jump in.
Yeah, I was just going to say the responses it gives seem to be a little bit shorter than uh, ChatGPT normally gives me, which is nice. Um, but it is, I found it to be defiant. So one of the things, it gave me a table, and I was like, oh, I like that table. So I then said, could you update the table with this? And then my next prompt was, you didn't update the table, although you gave me some good information it should be on the table. And then my prompt after that was, give me the table, please. And then my next prompt was, why won't you give me the table for direct comparisons? That's as far as I got.
Interesting. Funny. I don't, yeah,
It
that's
kind of
new.
wants to go in its direction, and I pull it back, and it's got hold of something, and it wants to run with that. I was
Interesting.
asking it for a comparison of I want to get some protein supplement for muscle recovery after a workout, and I said, oh, it has to be available near me. Couple of criteria. Let's work this out. Yeah.
Huh. Funny. I mean, I've been asking it the impossible question and it keeps refusing to give me an answer. So, yep, sometimes, I mean, but generally that's not my experience. It's fairly responsive to me saying, yeah, no, less of that, more of that. Defiant. Awesome.
I was asking about general interviewing and giving it examples, and it kind of went many different places. And then I'm trying to say, okay, let's pick this one out of 5 and let's go dig. Then it gave me many other different directions. And finally, I have this meeting thing called, I think, Meeting AI, where it gives me a summary of the meeting. So it was a summary of the interview. So I copied and pasted. Here's an example. And it got better, but it was more like a therapy, like, well, just review it, and basically where you feel like you're yourself, that's great. And where you don't, then just sit with it. Like, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, half the time when it asks me to sit with it, I ignore it and start the next prompt. That's part of this deal here where it extends a lot of invitations and ideas and directions. And it took me a while to get comfortable with just ignoring most of it and just going with where my curiosity was really alive and what caught my attention. And the rest is just part for the soup, where it's like, whatever. Part of the prolificness, it offers a target-rich environment, and then you still have to choose where in that whole soup, yeah, you actually want to focus. And it doesn't feel polite.
For me, it was like a rabbit hole experience. And I found it but rather verbose that I need to like get through all of this. And I was just like, wow, look at you, intellectual. And it keep kind of like, I would say, Volker, I mean, I would recognize that it's yours. Because I feel like I've been in conversation with you and we were like butting heads. So that part is there. But it was very interesting. I asked about, I said that I'm curious about collaboration and that I heard a lot about these ideas that AI is like doing things cheaper and faster, but collaboration between people cheaper and faster is not always the answer to everything. Collaboration between people is a very important and valuable, and there were talks that those skills could be lost because people start having more and more AI around them and AI coworkers and everything. And so I said, I'm curious about it. And so it took me, who knows where, like, it is recognized like few different thoughts in there, just like in your prompt. And then
so before you retell us your content, What was your experience other than butting heads with me? That was very interesting.
It was interesting conversation, definitely. But I had to like stay on my point, and the bot was trying to stay on its point.
Oh, interesting. Yes, I mean, I recognize for myself that I
That
need
was
to
very,
bring
very
a point
interesting
of a
experience.
view. I need to bring a point of view to the table. Otherwise, it's just going to drag me through the mud. And I speak from experience. Like,
Yeah,
yes, you have to definitely, there's some ownership on your side to pick and choose and redirect and nudge more than we would tolerate in a human to human conversation. I mean, the politeness factor takes some getting over.
fascinating.
Cool. Um, how did you deal with the prolificness, like the onslaught?
I didn't have an onslaught.
You
I was
didn't?
just gonna, no, I was just gonna say it was really nice because it was more conversational. I used the Gemini, but a lot more conversational, and it gave suggestions, but it wasn't like the usual where it just had this a bunch of answers on them. And it was an agile related topic, so it kind of pulled from that. It says, "Ah, I see that you're talking about agile. You should apply this, or not suggested. Here's an idea." I really liked the way it was more suggestive instead of like, and it was very just like one suggestion or a couple suggestions. I like that.
It got my attention when, after a few hours, I asked it what it infers about me based on um, just based on the chat. And I was talking about organizations and team dynamics and leadership and coaching. Um, and it came back and told me, you know, systemic constellations. It's like, how did you get there? That was nowhere, like it knew my orientation, my training. It was like, you got to be kidding. So
What?
it was
Wow, that's
stunning.
crazy.
It was crazy. Um, so yeah, yeah, it does some crazy moves.
Mind reading.
Uh, all from text. That is the stunning part. Just text. Um, so apart from having to fight Sammy, did anybody have to like wrestle the bot?
I
Okay.
tried to change topics on it, and it tried to analyze me as to why I wanted to change topics.
Yeah, it is invited to to create a reflection back and sort of in service of surfacing hidden assumptions. Um, and sometimes those are pretty lame, and sometimes it's like, whoops, what just happened? I gotta go for a walk. This is gonna have to sink in a little. Did anybody comment on the conversation? Like have a meta conversation? This is too fast, too slow, you're not listening. Oh, Sammy, you try to get it redirected, but like making an observation about yourself to the bot in service of, better communication. It's a little bit like that question after a few hours, like, who do you think I am? And then it comes back with an answer. And that was so having having a conversation on multiple levels, the machine does supremely well because it has no, like its cognitive limits are way different than ours. So it does some amazing stuff if you invite it to.
I guess with my redirect, I did have a meta experience with it because I said specifically, I feel like this line of questioning is not helping me. My original question was X. How can I best use Photoshop for design purposes? That's what I wanted to know. And it was like, okay, I'm glad you told me this. I'm not being defensive. I followed the implications of your definitions while you were asking for orientation. And it's like, what I asked a very specific, it went down this very, very obscure, I don't know what. It's like, can you define design for me? It's like, really? Do I have to do so it felt like I was dealing with a professor almost that was, you know, trying to, I don't know. The method, honestly, that I was dealing with it was uncomfortable to me
Okay.
because of that.
It does some weird moves in terms of complementing us. So to some extent, it mirrors us. So it starts using our language, it uses our sentence structures. It's very responsive to sort of, yeah, the textual input. And then sometimes it just does the opposite. So if you're too scattered and all over the map, it gets super structured in its responses and it creates lists and tables and yeah, or if you're coming from a very structured place, it leans over into yeah, let's soften this a little bit. And so it's I haven't quite gotten a grasp on the pattern there, but it does both complementing and very precise mirroring in different circumstances. And it is fascinating to watch. Cool. Any sort of any takeaways or sort of something, just sort of a aha moment, something that stands out for you as we're sort of closing up. And then I have a few more comments. I want to share a file with you, but sort of just sort of this exploratory part. What are you taking away? Or this was a waste of time, which is a fair answer.
I found this useful, so I'm gonna be right after this. I'm gonna be using it.
If you have,
Thank
like,
you.
send me an email
Yeah.
if you're discovering something
Yeah.
maddening or amazing.
Not yet. Yeah.
I'm
Cool.
all ears.
Thank you.
I think you were describing earlier this idea that when you're talking to a person, there's a lot behind what is happening with the two people who are there, or the groups of people that are there. And I feel like this particular bot offered that kind of depth, that there might be something underneath the surface that could be there that's really the heart of the issue, not necessarily what's on, so an iceberg, right? You're asking it for the top, but actually what it's doing is giving you the bottom, and asking you for clarity on is that on the top or is it something deeper? And that's something that I don't get often with Claude, unless I'm specifically asking Claude to offer those things, which sometimes I am. What am I missing? What are the deeper pieces? This is doing it without that caveat.
I'm wondering if it's more that this bot is suiting some people's personalities and not other people's personalities. I find, so I use ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Copilot on the free version because I believe those restrictions will make me use the other ones and therefore I, get more exposure. And I have found that with all of them, they're all very different. With all of them, I have to sort of say things like, um, with the options you give me, uh, number them, and I'm just going to select a number. Anything I don't choose, leave it as an option on further responses. But that's because of my personality, which is I like to cover everything at some point, or at least have the option, and I hate forgetting about things. So I want it to do my work for me. Whereas this one is more conversational, I think. And if that's the way you jam, then
Yeah, I'm a meanderer. That's yeah. I like to meander, um, and that's part of sort of. I'm explicitly using in the instructions dialogic conversation as a way of directing the bot, and so yeah, there are probably limits to how much it will veer off sort of the core of the instruction. Um, if you know what you want, this bot is pure annoyance. It is, nothing is more annoying than interacting with this bot when you actually know what you want. It is not recommended. I did that by mistake and I wasn't paying attention. I was like, are you crazy? And then I realized, like, oh,
yeah,
yeah, I'm talking to the wrong bot.
I'm wondering, I might ask it which, because you have profile assessments, DISC, Myers-Briggs, Strengths Finder, Working Genius, which of each of those it feels it's more aligned with. That could be interesting.
Yep, that's a good, yeah. I have done my darndest to strip all my personal information out of it. So it's the instructions are very generic. But Elena still thinks she's talking to me, so apparently.
Well, not only me, also somebody else also said that it's deep, and you're deep. When I talk with you, or I know when I hear people talking with you, you always go deep, and so it has that flavor of yours. It's very
Yes,
yours.
yes. Yeah, it does that. It wants to go beneath the surface. Cool. All right, so here is what I call a field guide. So it's not really an instruction manual, but as I don't know, that's kind of a little context for yeah, what I think will help get into that dialogic mode with a bot. And this is early days. So if you have any feedback experience, um, please drop me a note because I'm clearly still playing with this thing and honing it and tuning it. Um, so anything you can add into the mix, into the hopper, greatly appreciated. And I will, I'm working on my 5th prompt tutorial, prompt guide that makes it a little more experiential versus descriptive. So if you're interested in being um, part of the guinea pig group, um, drop your email in the chat and I'll reach out to you when I have something to experiment with. And what else?
To open.
This this is part of sort of, part of the idea for today's session was that our Agile Open event, our open space event this year is called Evolving the Art of Collaboration. And this year, I'm assuming this is not just human to human collaboration, but with AI playing a bigger and bigger role in the workplace. There'll be a bunch of these topics included as well. And if you want to talk about how to collaborate with AI in the mix, because it's open space, there's no existing prefab agenda with presenters. So you bring your curiosities and your interests to the group and then find like-minded people to get into conversation with. And open space is just the best. So if you haven't yet, or if you're interested in getting into conversations about collaboration, join us. You had the dates, what, 8, 9 of
8,
April?
9.
The 8th and the 9th of April.
Yeah.
And oh, do we have a link? Can you put a link into the chat, Elena?
Yeah, 1 sec.
Cool. Great. I mean, that is, if anybody else, is there anything that needs to be said or done before we sort of close the formal part, and then there'll be some informal hanging out, chatting afterwards. Now that we're not doing it in person, we're just hanging out here for a while.
I second Volker on attending Agile Open. It's the best event ever. And so please come.
Is it a in person or a virtual event?
It's in person.
Real humans.
Oh,
Real
it's
conversations.
2 days
Wow,
in a
scary.
row,
Yes.
2 full days in San Ramon, $209.93.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Okay.
I also pasted Eventbrite link.
Any discounts for people that are unemployed right now?
We can always figure something out.
Cool.
Awesome. All right. This concludes the formal part of the evening. And if you have, dinner plans or other things to do, thank you for joining us. And I'll be hanging out for a little while.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Frank.
Volker. This was good.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Elena.
Pleasure.
And I do want to say for the unemployed people, I think some of them have dropped off now though, but the Agile Open is a great place for both to find coaching and for networking. So if you can find a way to be there, I do recommend it. And it was recommended to me by, well, a whole list of people, including my own personal coach. So I do recommend it for folks.